If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, find out how at missingwitches.com or order our new book, New Moon Magic, 13 Anti-Capitalist Tools of Resistance and Re-enchantment.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch. You must be a witch.
In the lead up to an all-new season of the Missing Witches podcast, and the release of our new book, New Moon Magic, we're sharing with you, our coven, our listeners, snippets from the audiobook version of New Moon Magic, 13 Anti-Capitalist Tools for Resistance and Re-enchantment by Risa Dickens and Amy Torek. Enjoy. New Moon Magic, 13 Anti-Capitalist Tools for Resistance and Re-enchantment by Risa Dickens and Amy Torek. Narrated by the authors. Published by North Atlantic Books.
Chapter 7. New Moon in Libra. Geometry. This circle is led by Risa, with expansions by Amy. The Libra new moon strives for balance. Sometimes that manifests as sacrificing everything for folks to get along. Other times it looks more like the poker-faced Queen of Swords, unafraid to wield its blade. Ruled by Venus, the Libra new moon values beauty, art, and connection with other souls. It is the art critic, the socialite, the diplomat, the lawyer, the activist, and the advocate, as motley as these roles may appear. Eliza Robertson, astrologer. The small yellow birds are back in the branches outside my window as I sit down to start this chapter on geometry. The leaves are ready with their colors for the fall. They are the fires to light the dark, and they are dissolving into darkness. The woods are wild with mushrooms. The vines of my fat squash tangle down the hill, and the beans have formed a giant floppy witch hat on the triangle of branches we made out on the lawn. This is the Libra new moon, and it loves balance and beauty, the extreme pleasure and comfort of putting things where they belong, and the rhizomatic layering that, in these parts, comes right before everything crystallizes into snowflakes. It turns out that the small yellow birds are goldfinches. They were with me at the beginning of this book, in the bright balance of spring, and here they are again as I try to trace out the resonant magic of geometry. And I'm glad to have their company because I've struggled with this chapter. Vanessa Oliver Lloyd, artist, forensic anthropologist, and co-founder of the now-defunct Art Witch Academy, helped me put this struggle into words when she said it was the idea of math as a universal language that pushed her to connect with geometry in a magical way, and not in the, quote, super triggering, traumatizing mathematical way that I learned in school, end quote. You might relate to this experience of math or sciences as part of high school trauma. I think for a lot of us, a giant chasm opens up between the arts and sciences around that age because of the way those concepts are taught.
I spent my time in high school assuming that math was full of only right and wrong answers, without room for imagination, emotion, or speculation. When a teacher wrote a complex equation on the chalkboard, one that couldn't be easily, materially demonstrated with an apple pie cut in triangles, I asked, my young mind curious about the humans behind the numbers, the paths toward ideas. How do they know? And she replied, they just know. And sadly, I never really studied math again, because I didn't know that she was wrong. They didn't just know. They guessed and imagined and calculated and theorized and calculated some more in an effort to explain and connect with our universe.
Poet Jared K. Anderson wrote, quote, "Dear Science, humans conceptualize complex ideas through metaphor, not jargon. You don't start with the jargon and move toward meaning. Start with meaning and move toward jargon. You need communicators who understand how to capture imagination. In short, you should hire poets." I have been stubborn about keeping geometry in the book. I wanted to claim the power and poetry of this symbolic language for myself and all of us, although I wasn't sure exactly why. I kept picking away at this and other chapters, and meanwhile, the lake froze. And then, while skating in circles on the lake under a brilliant sky, I dropped suddenly into a mathematical memory. When I was 7, my mother, my new stepdad, and I moved from snowy Waterloo, Ontario, where they had finished their grad school programs, out to Los Angeles, where my stepdad got his first teaching job at UCLA. I mentioned that Waterloo was snowy because that's the main thing I remember about it, being pulled to school in a red sleigh by my mother through the snow. But actually, we moved in the summer. My childhood memories of California are all disjointed sense memories, especially the quality of light. Moving from Ontario to California was like stepping from a world drawn in pencil crayons into a stained glass window. There were flowers everywhere, and the classroom had wide open windows and the air smelled like pink jasmine and honeysuckle. And when we got there, they put me in some summer program, and it was about geometry. It was about making art with geometry. I learned how to use a compass for the first time and how to move the compass point along the circumference of a circle to make intersecting spheres, unfolding waves, a bright and steady blossoming. I learned this, and then everything disappeared. The memory is so clear. There's no one in the room but me, and I can't fathom why that would be the case, but there I am, and the scene is palpitating with colored light and jasmine. I am alone for hours in this cool adobe room, with the hot sun breathing in and out on a breeze, through a wild, unfurling jungle outside the windows. I sit in a calm euphoria as I draw swooping spheres in bright, sharp colors. I see the meeting points opening like flowers into an infinity that spirals gently back. This memory hovers like a hummingbird, strange and inexplicable. That moment stained my memory. It's a kaleidoscopic dream that changed forever how I saw the world around me. I was very far from home. I was at the edge and also in the center. And where I was, the spheres were singing. And so I want to sketch out an understanding for myself and for all us witches about geometry in magic and the magic possibilities inherent in taking up geometry. To begin, draw a circle around yourself in your mind. Ancient Mesopotamians would draw zisuru, a magical circle drawn with flour, around the bed of one who needed protecting, or around the bull whose skin would become a sacred drum. Once I went to a therapist who sat on the floor with me, gave me a rope, and invited me to use it to make a circle around myself while we spoke. Whether you feel comfortable with ancient Sumerians or modern therapists, the circle makes a space that's just for you and what you allow. Within this sacred ancient protection, orient yourself within the cardinal points. Place something small to mark north, east, south, west. A token each for earth, air, fire, and water. Use anything that works for you. Stone, incense, candle, and a glass of water will work. And now you'll notice that you are in a square within a circle. Now and always, your breathing life force is at the meeting point of a living axis of dynamic possibility. The goldfinches are here to remind us that all our circles are spirals. We are always fluttering forward in that other dimension of time. All our geometries are partial, our best impressions of what we can imagine as we peer through our tiny bright viewfinders, lit in the dark of our electrical minds. Quote, "The task of the right eye is to peer into the telescope, while the left eye peers into the microscope," end quote, wrote artist, novelist, magic maker Leonora Carrington. We can draw on geometry to help us orient ourselves in the vastness, both minute and massive, to see the birds as well as the patterns they trace in flocks across millennia. By flying in a logarithmic spiral, falcons take advantage of the curve's unique properties to maintain a fixed gaze on their prey while retaining body alignment. Nature loves the logarithmic spiral. From sunflowers, seashells, and whirlpools to hurricanes and spiral galaxies, we discover this extraordinary form at all scales, from the microscopic to the cosmological." End quote. I want to consider geometry as a tool for seeing the vastness, for keeping our gaze fixed, and for retaining our alignment.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch. You must be a witch.
If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, find out how at missingwitches.com or order our new book, New Moon Magic, 13 Anti-Capitalist Tools of Resistance and Re-enchantment.